Hello everybody, my name is Tommy and welcome to Aero Workshop. Today I'm going to answer the question of when using a circle cutting jig with your handheld router, do you move it in a clockwise or an anti-clockwise direction? Now it doesn't matter whether it's a homemade circle cutting jig like this one or one that you have purchased, it's still going to be the very same. Now primarily there are two different types of cut that you use with the circle cutting jig. The first one being where you're cutting a circle in the middle of a piece of wood where the full weight of the router bit is doing the cutting. So you have wood on the outside and on the inside the full way around the circle. And the second one is where you have a disc that you've cut maybe roughly the size with a jigsaw on the bandsaw, and you're only removing a small portion of the material around the outside edge just to get it a perfect circle, but it's less than the full weight of the router bit. Now, for this I'm going to be using the diagram that I drew up in my previous video on router direction, and if you haven't checked that out, I'll leave a link down below, and we'll be using that just to give an insight as to what's happening. As explained in a previous video, the diagram outlines the cutting forces that are exerted by the bit when doing a cut. So this part of the bit and this part of the bit are the main parts that are doing the cut. So if you're wanting to keep the direction right, you're going in that direction with that up against the wood, or this up against the wood and run in this direction. The red ones are the ones that give you runaway and the router moving away from the material. Now the one advantage to using a circle cutting jig is it has a fixed point, which only allows it to pivot either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So you have removed the lateral pull that's already exerted by the bit. So you really only have the cutting or the runaway to worry about. You don't have to worry about the lateral in or out. So to start with, I'm going to discuss cutting a small amount off a disc that you've roughly cut, say, just for example, with a jigsaw. And as you can see from the diagram, you'll be using this portion of the bit. So this is the part that's doing the main cutting. This is the controlling cut, as we call it. So when you look at that, you can see that you need to run in an anti-clockwise direction. And if you run the opposite direction, that's the direction that will give you runaway. As you can see, when I move the router in an anti-clockwise direction, I am feeding the router into the cut, so I have control of the router. But if I move the router in a clockwise direction, the router now is trying to take control and is actually trying to run away. And we don't want that. So we need to run in an anti-clockwise direction on this type of a cut. I could finish the video there and state if you are using a circle cutting jig with your router to run it in an anti-clockwise direction. But it would be remiss of me not to state that if you are running a cut where the full weight of the bit is actually generating the cut, i.e. that it's coming the full way, that this portion of the bit is doing the same amount of a cut as this side of the bit, that's what we would call a balanced cut. Now when you're doing a balanced cut, because you've removed the lateral forces on the bit, you can actually run clockwise or anti-clockwise because you don't have any imbalance in the cutting of the bit. But if the material is even just fractionally in from the outside edge of the bit, you lose the balanced cut. So if you were cutting this here and this part came out, that the bit was coming out of the material, in that section where the bit comes through the material, you lose the balanced cut. And when you don't have that, you will have to revert back to the anti-clockwise direction. But in some cases, when you're cutting the full, you can actually run in both directions. And I'll demonstrate that now. And as you can see, with this type of cut, I can actually run in an anti-clockwise direction and have control, or I can run in a clockwise direction and still maintain control of the router. Okay, now you have seen both different types of cut explained and put to the test. Like I said before, I would recommend that you run your router in an anti-clockwise direction, irrespective of whether it's a balanced cut or a non-balanced cut. But sometimes there do be a need where you do need to run in a clockwise direction. So if you need to do that, just make sure it's a balanced cut before you do so. So hopefully this video was informative, and all I'd like to say is until next time, thanks for watching, good luck.